And so Biden gave a recent speech where he labeled Trump supporters really domestic terrorists to the nation. What are your thoughts on that? And it got a 18-year-old killed. Is that what happened? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's really despicable. I spent my adult life fighting real terrorists, real extremists. So those labels, they have very specific definitions. And when you talk about the government, those specific definitions give you authorities. And that's basically what Biden did. It's also very persuasive when he labels people as extremists and terrorists. That just, heightens the divisions, heightens fear. And next thing you know, you have people that start to believe this rhetoric, and you have a young man he was ran over, targeted by somebody who killed him with a vehicle. And when the police arrest that man, he says, well, I killed that guy because he's a Republican extremist. The exact same rhetoric Biden's used. So I think we need to stop this rhetoric of like, hey, this other side is extremist, and stop labeling them as the other worthy of using violence against.
Yeah. Katie Daviscourt reporting for Rebel News here today in Renton, Washington, where two congressional hopefuls are campaigning ahead of November's important midterm elections. Tonight, we will hear from Republican candidate Joe Kent, who is running for Washington State's 3rd Congressional District as the Trump-endorsed America First candidate. Kent is an Army veteran and Gold Star husband who happens to be one of Big Tech's biggest enemies, as they have meddled in the election by banning and censoring most of his accounts. We will also hear from Doug Basler, who is running as the Republican candidate in the state's 9th Congressional District against longtime Democrat incumbent Adam Smith. Now, this is considered to be the most important election for conservatives in the nation's history, where America First candidates are hoping to take back the House and the Senate with the goal of retiring House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and preventing the Biden administration from enacting further policies that would destroy our nation. A lot is at stake for the future of our country, and tonight we're going to hear why the United States should want Kent and Basler in Congress.
Because we all know, just like you guys do, what the stakes are. The Democrats are in complete and total lockstep. They're destroying this country. It is on full display when you look at the state of our economy, what they've done with our energy, with the way they've killed off our natural resources, especially oil and gas. That's driven this cycle of inflation that's crushing American working families. They can't run from that, just like they can't run from crime, whether it's at the national level because of our open border. We've had enough fentanyl shipped into the country to kill every American multiple times over. We've had 4 million illegal immigrants that we think it's around 4 million that have illegally entered the country so far since Biden took over. And we just found out yesterday, the House GOP just released, the Democrats are attempting to give non-U.S. citizens the ability to vote. So they're not even hiding why they're allowing illegal immigrants into our country, and they're willing to risk our lives with pumping in the fentanyl and the crime coming from the cartels just to get an additional bit of political power. The Democrats, they don't care about politics as usual. The only thing that they understand is power. We are going to hammer them for this entire election cycle on the economy, on crime, and what they're doing to our children. They cannot run from these things, especially here in Washington State. Washington runs on the Planned Parenthood sex ed agenda, and that is, make no mistake about it, that is the radical groomer ideology. They're trying to convince our kids there's multiple genders, and then they're also trying to convince our children that they don't need to tell their parents that they could be given gender-affirming care, which gender-affirming care, and this is another one, make no mistake about it, the Democrats do a fantastic job of coming up with these really cute titles for very radical things. Gender-affirming care is chemical castration for kids, and it is the mutilation of children through life-altering surgeries before they're 18 years old. This is the Democrat agenda. Because they can't address any of these issues, all they're going to do is personally attack all of us. They're going to call us extremists, they're going to call us white nationalists, all that same nonsense. And the way the Biden administration has been labeling all of us as extremists, that has real ramifications. Just last week, there was a young man who was killed, and his murderer said, I killed this guy because he was a Republican. He's a Republican extremist. Well, that's what happens when the commander-in-chief puts out this messaging consistently over and over and over again. And the national security apparatus, the FBI, are they trying to stop the fentanyl from coming across the border? Are they trying to protect American citizens? No, absolutely not. The FBI is weaponized against Joe Biden's political enemies. He's going after President Trump, his senior advisors, but then they even go after Americans, parents that show up to school board meetings and say, hey, stop teaching my kids these radical ideologies. They turn the FBI counterterrorism task force against parents. And that's illegal, that's disgraceful, and because of that, we are going to have to get aggressive and start cutting off their funding. When we take back power in 2023, I'm very convinced we're going to have a red wave. I think Doug and I are going to be there come January.
So why are you deciding to run?
Well, I mean, really, this is the full state of the country. I mean, I felt in 2021 that we were losing our nation after the election of 2020, and that's only gotten more solidified the further the Biden regime is, the longer they've been in power. So I think it's incumbent that everybody stands up, so I'm honored to be in the fight.
Now, you went up there and gave a speech, and you mentioned the Biden administration weaponizing the Department of Justice against their political enemies. I believe that is one of the biggest issues that Republicans are going to be voting for a candidate on. What are your thoughts on the January 6th prisoners, and are they a victim of Biden's weaponization?
100% they are. So, excuse me, I'm against anybody who does anything violent, but I think right now all the folks that have done something violent, they've been dealt with, but we still have a ton of people that are being essentially held as political prisoners. And then there's the whole narrative behind January 6th, where they're labeling anybody who was either there on January 6th or just involved in conservative politics, Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, et cetera. They're wrapping them up under this guise of January 6th. It's led to the weaponization of federal law enforcement. You know, I tie that in as well. The parents that show up at school board meetings, the FBI Counterterrorism Task Force is going after them. So I think this is just a case of the FBI being completely and totally out of control. They haven't disclosed the full truth behind January 6th. I still have lingering questions about federal government's involvement. I used to work in human intelligence operations, and we have some very big questions we'll be asking from the Oversight Committee of the FBI, of the Department of Justice. But I just think they're so far out of control that to show them that we actually mean business, we're going to have to defund them.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
So Biden gave a recent speech where he labeled Trump supporters really domestic terrorists to the nation. What are your thoughts on that? And it got a 18-year-old killed. Is that what happened? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's really despicable. I spent my adult life fighting real terrorists, real extremists. So those labels, they have very specific definitions. And when you talk about the government, those specific definitions give you authorities. And that's basically what Biden did. It's also very persuasive when he labels people as extremists and terrorists. That just, heightens the divisions, heightens fear. And next thing you know, you have people that start to believe this rhetoric, and you have a young man he was ran over, targeted by somebody who killed him with a vehicle. And when the police arrest that man, he says, well, I killed that guy because he's a Republican extremist. The exact same rhetoric Biden's used. So I think we need to stop this rhetoric of hey, this other side is extremist, and stop labeling them as the other worthy of using violence against.
Yeah.
I think of my opponent that I'm running against, she is a Democrat. I have different and better policy positions than she does, and I'm going to beat her on that. But all that they can do, my opponent and every Democrat included, is call us extremists, call us terrorists, and really just trying to attack us personally, but also just really attack half the country they disagree with. It's just very dangerous and irresponsible.
If you win your election, what's the first move you're going to make in Congress?
Signing on to the impeachment papers for Joe Biden. So there's Marjorie Taylor Greene's already drafting them up. I'll sign on to those. I think there's some articles we can add here and there. Kamala Harris needs a full set of papers for impeachment. And then I think we have to make an ultimatum, a demand to the Biden administration that he needs to reverse all of his day one energy policies to give the American people some relief at the pump, or we will not fund the federal budget. We have to start showing them that we are going to start defunding things and using the appropriations process offensively, because that's really the only tool we have while we still have Biden in the executive branch.
Right. And why should people vote for you?
Why should people vote for me? Because everyone knows right now that our country is completely and totally off the rails. So if they want to restore our economy, if they want secure borders, if they want to stop these horrible, endless wars, and they want law and order restored, they want parental rights restored, then I humbly ask for their vote. I am not a career politician. I'm a warrior, and I believe right now we are in a conflict and in a struggle, and I want to go take down the Democrat regime, but I also want to go take down this Leviathan that has become the administrative state.
I actually started doing street church when they locked us down. I gave them 3 weeks, because remember it was 3 weeks to flatten the curve. And I said, you know what? They can't close our churches down. And when the cops came, I just said, First Amendment. And they're like, have a nice protest, right? So we've got to push back. The Constitution is still in force, but you don't have any rights if you don't exercise your rights. Yeah. And if 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds can storm the beaches at Normandy in 1944 and die, don't you think you can take a little bit of a bad post on Facebook? Just say something. Yep. Say something, because it's so funny when you do. It's like they come to you. They just come, I don't believe like that. Am I right? I'm right. And so stop being afraid. This is the time for courage.
So why did you decide to run?
Well, we have to, as conservatives and as just people of faith and everything, we have to get involved. We have to make a stand. If we let the other side just have it, we're going to be held accountable for that, right?
Right.
And so I'm in because I care, and I'm in because I believe I can win. And what I do for a living is marketing and all that. And I think that running an election and winning an election is a marketing problem. And it's all about convincing people to buy pizza or cars or whatever. But in this case, it's about convincing people to do the right thing. And I'm a big fan of Stephen Covey. And one of his 7 habits is the win-win scenario. And so what we're trying to do is help people make decisions that are good for them. Like, make a decision in your own best interest would be to get rid of these lefties and put in people that care about families and kids and the economy and jobs and energy prices and all these things.
What do you believe are the biggest issues facing not just our country, but your district?
Well, certainly one of the biggest issues that's absolutely critical right now is crime. I had a good friend of mine just a few days ago had to shoot someone because he was being attacked.
Wow.
And my office building was broken into 5 times by the same guy. I had to literally go down and have coffee with the police chief because they knew who it was, because he stole my iPad, turned it on. I went and got his license plate and his picture because he's walking around with my iPad on, right? And I had to convince them to arrest him. So crime is huge. We need to get that under control. And of course, inflation, energy prices, these things are directly affected by our Congress, right? The spending, we stop the printing money, we get inflation under control, we open up our domestic energy, we get energy prices down. There's no reason to have a recession right now. It's man-made. When we talk about man-caused disaster, Biden is a man-caused disaster. So those are really the big issues.
Great.
And of course the kids. We're protecting our kids. Like I said in my speech earlier tonight, we don't want Jeffrey Epstein in charge of our schools.
Exactly.
And he didn't hang himself, by the way.
I kind of agree with that. I actually went to cover a climate change conference and Bill Gates was there. Bill Gates was on Epstein's island 36 times, so I questioned him about that. Bill, what's your relationship to Jeffrey Epstein? Bill, what's your relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, and why did you not distance yourself after he was found guilty of child prostitution in Florida? Why did you not distance yourself? The World Economic Forum is one of the biggest issues facing the globe. They are trying to implement one world order. Are you going to be fighting back against the World Economic Forum?
Yeah, absolutely. What's made the world a better place is individual national sovereignty. And so this one world trying to homogenize everything is bad. God made boundaries. He set them. And he actually pronounced a curse on people who moved them and changed them. And so what makes America a really awesome place is that when people came here, they became Americans. And we don't think the French are racist because they have French people. We don't think the Chinese are racist because Chinese people live there. And so, I believe in national sovereignty. I believe in checks and balances, and that's how you do it, by having people competing and being happy in their geographic locations and stuff. No, it's great. So we're definitely against them. We need to defund them. If these guys are coming up with the money, we should stop spending money with these people, right? Stop sending. You mentioned Bill Gates. Stop making him more rich.
What a concept.
Jeff Bezos, all this kind of stuff. I can buy any. I love Amazon. I don't.
Yeah.
I want to buy from anybody but them.
Yeah, support the small businesses.
Absolutely. So, it's about us as individuals. When we make those choices, it's powerful. It's really powerful.
So why should people vote for you?
Well, if they want safe neighborhoods, safe schools, if they would like to have lower energy costs and stop inflation, then I'm their guy.
If you enjoyed our coverage tonight and would like more on-the-ground grassroots journalism, please support us at rebelnewsusa.com. Subscribe and consider donating. We don't take a dime from the government and tell the other side of the story. Thank you, guys.